In this video, I'm going to turbocharge your list building skills. I'm going to give you all the tools you'll ever need to make a top-notch army list. And when you use these tools, not only do you get a better army list, but you actually understand your army at a much, much higher level, which is going to make you perform significantly better at Warhammer 40,000. So we're breaking into this. This is the exact stuff I take my clients through that really, really helps build people's skills. So I'm giving you the sauce. Please use this. You're going to see some amazing things. We're going to break through all the sticky points in our list building, and we're going to identify list weaknesses, and we're going to identify our strengths, which is going to give you the knowledge that you need to actually shore up those weaknesses or really lean into those strengths. Basically, what we're going to do is I'm going to identify 5 unique roles that units perform in Warhammer 40,000. Then we're going to discuss how to use these roles to focus on why you get to take units, and more importantly, how to use said units on the battlefield. Because what I will see a lot of people do very often is they'll take the correct units, or they'll take the top meta list, which is a fantastic list, but they won't use the units correctly because they don't understand how to use those units, because they don't understand the roles of those units in the army. And so I'm going to make sure that whenever you're building your army list, or even if you're taking an army list from someone else, when you assign roles to these units, that's how you're going to make sure you know how to use those units in the game appropriately. And we're going to go super, super deep into it. So let's just jump right into it. Okay. Roles. Now, this is super, super important. This is setting the entire set for it. When you assign roles to your unit, you need to make sure your role is why your unit is in the army. This is going to make a lot of sense very, very soon. Let me give you a brief preview example. If I am taking a unit of intercessors in an army, I need to know why that unit of intercessors is in my army. And I need to make sure I'm using them for why they're in the army and not for something they just kind of can do. So the example I have here might seem silly, but it's true. Intercessors can kill a Knight Tyrant. You can hit all your hits, you can wound all your wounds, and he can fail all his saves. You can absolutely kill a Knight Tyrant with a unit of intercessors. It's true. But that is never going to be why you're taking intercessors. Now, this is a very extreme example, but I want to use the extreme example so that I can illustrate the points. So what you are going to do is you're going to assign these roles for specifically why that unit is in your army, not for things that they just can do. If I'm bringing Gaz Kulmak Erdtraka, I'm not bringing him to do secondary objectives, for example. That doesn't mean I've never done cleanse with Gaz. I have done cleanse with Gaz, but he's not there to do cleanse. Does that make sense? So when you're using these rules, there's going to be 5 roles. You can only, at max, assign 2 roles to any of your units. These roles are why your unit is in the army. It doesn't mean your unit will never do anything else, but when you identify why the unit is in your army, you're going to be playing them for those reasons, which is going to turbocharge your results in 40k. So role number 1, primary objective control. Now, this is divided into 2 different categories. You have the question, who is holding your primary? But just as importantly, you have to identify who is denying your opponent's primary. That's very, very important. And opponents is spelled with a T, so I'm going to put that in there. You have to know who's denying your opponent's primary. I'll give you a great example of this. In my army, when I'm playing orcs, I actually bring Gretchen, and one of the things that my Gretchen are there specifically for is I like to advance them out of a truck to stand on the primary that my opponent is controlling to deny them the ability to score primary. That's like one of the main reasons I bring Gretchen. I spend a 40-point unit to say you don't get any victory points in your turn. It's so critical, it's so powerful, and that's why I specifically bring that unit, which is very interesting. So now, just to break this concept down a little bit more for you, everyone, or at least almost everyone in your army can hold primary, because basically everyone has OC. I mean, there's some units that don't, but basically everyone can hold primary. But it's not their job to hold primary. So the question is, who is in your list specifically for this role? I just gave you an example of the Gretchen. When I'm playing orcs, Gretchen are there to hold my primary. They're there to deny my opponent's primary. Boys, intercessors are great for holding primary. When I play Space Marines, a lot of times I use my Lancers to actually hold primary, because that's one of their 2 roles. Just to give you this one, like if I take Dante, and Dante is leading 6 Sanguinary Guard, that is my 360-point Death Star unit. I'm never going to give him the role of primary objective control, even though he can hold primary. I recognize he can, and oftentimes he actually does. but that is not his job. So I'm going to always have him positioned in such a way that is going to allow him to be doing his job in my army. And maybe if he's holding primary, that's a bonus for me. All right, so this is primary objective control. Think about what units in your army are actively here to hold your primary and to deny your opponent's primary. Rule number 2, secondaries. Now, secondaries have changed in the new chapter Prove, and this is very, very important for you to understand because we have a lost containment out of the secondaries deck. So it's gone. Poof. That is 2 actions because containment was 2 different actions you would do. Each action would be 3 points to a maximum of 6 points. That is no longer in the tactical secondary deck. So you have lost 2 actions that you have to do. And 2 new secondaries are simply be there actions, meaning you just have to tempting target, which is, hey, you got to go be on that objective. That's just putting a unit there. It's not doing an action. So the nature of list building has changed a little bit. We don't need nearly as many action monkeys or units that are there specifically just to stand on a circle and do cleanse as we used to, because there's less actions overall to do. Now, Terraform, the primary mission, potentially might require more actions now, which is a little bit of an interesting curveball they threw us. But overall, outside of that one mission, you actually have significantly less actions to do and more like non-action secondaries to do, which does change it. I'll give you a great example here. Dante and 6 Sanguinary Guard. This is probably the unit I'm going to use for all of these. They can score you 2 points on cleanse, but they're not in my army to score me 2 points on cleanse. If I'm going to be thinking about units that are dedicated to secondaries, this would be things like a Calidus Assassin. One of the Calidus Assassin's greatest strengths is that she can uppy downy every single turn, which means she can be anywhere I need her to be. Need someone to do Establish Locus? Great, she's awesome at that. Need someone to do Cleanse? I'll just come down on one of my objectives and she could do Cleanse. So scoring secondaries is an amazing ability for her. So she is a unit that I would probably take in my army specifically to do secondaries. So what I need you to do is when you're building your army list, look for the units there that are specifically there to score secondaries. Very important. All right. Role number 3 is the one that most of us are most excited about, which is kill, 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 kill. And our hero from Boltgun is there to be the representative of this secondary. So now kill is a little bit of a unique role because killing has 3 subcategories. You've got anti-infantry killing, you've got anti-elite killing, and you've got anti-monster vehicle. When I'm talking about anti-infantry, I'm meaning guardsmen. I'm talking orc boys. I'm talking, basically any elf body. And then I'm talking maybe as high as intercessors, so like 2 wound space marines, but still T4. That's going to be your infantry profiles that you need to tech for. Then when I'm talking anti-elite, it's a very different style of profile. So this is when you're going into like Blade Guard veterans, Terminators, 8-bound, Custodes, Breachers, Sanguinary Guard, Death Shroud Terminators, anything like this profile. 3 wounds, 4 wounds, generally going to be close to the 2-up armor save. They're going to have invulnerable saves. It requires a different type of weapon to kill these units effectively than the types of weapons that are really good into infantry. You're thinking things like Forge Fiends. You're taking things like interestingly enough, a lot of the elite infantry or the elites are the ones who are good into elites. So you're thinking things like flat 3 weaponry a lot of times is what's going to be really good into elites. Not always, especially with the arrival of our Death Shroud Terminators, other infantry with 4 wounds. So, but it's still going to be that at least like flat 2 damage, higher AP things that's really good into them. Then you've got the last kill subcategory, which is going to be your anti-monster vehicle. This kind of speaks for itself. You're thinking las cannons, you're thinking laser destroyers, you're thinking neutron lasers. These, the AP3, AP4, D6 plus style damages. These are things that are very specifically tailored for killing monsters and vehicles, but they kind of suck at killing infantry. Sure, a laser destroyer will probably kill 2 guardsmen, but that's a 160-point lancer that ends up killing 2 guardsmen. So it's not efficient into infantry. And this is not always obvious. So let me give you the example that I kind of gave on a live stream last night, which, by the way, last night's live stream was fire. If you guys want to know information about how Blood Angels are running right now, seriously, go check that out. But Sanguinary Guard are a beautiful example of a good unit that's really bad at killing infantry. Let me give you the rundown. If you're playing Liberator Assault Group, which is they are at their most dangerous, they're at their most dangerous in Liberator Assault Group. If I take a 110-point unit of Sanguinary Guard, that is going to be 15 attacks if they charge. They hit on 3s, which means they hit 10 times, and they would wound, say, a 10-man unit of guardsmen on 2s. And if they only hit 10 times, and there's a 10-man unit of guardsmen, they're probably only going to wound you 8 to 9 times, which means a 110-point unit does not kill a 65-point unit of infantry, and they are actively bad at killing infantry. Sure, you can bias it, and you can make them able to do it by leading them with a captain, for example, but then you have like a 185-point unit that is required to kill a 65-point unit of infantry. So what you got to think of is that profile, even though it looks like it's really scary into infantry, it's really not. However, it becomes quite scary into some of the elite models out there, or it can even be pretty decent into light vehicles and light monsters. So you have to be really, really making sure that you've actually put the thought into what is good and what is useful at killing these types of units. A unit of JPI, a 5-man unit of JPI, is actually significantly better at killing anti-infantry. It's much better at killing your infantry than a more expensive unit of Sanguinary Guard. So keep in mind what is your unit there specifically to kill. This is going to help you with your target prioritizations. Role number 4. We've got CP manipulation and battle shock mechanisms. Now, this is a little complicated, so let me break it down for you. When I mean CP manipulation, I mean anything that can make stratagems cost more or can make them cost less. So a Calidus has the Vect aura, or Cypher has the Vect aura that can, or even the Swarm Lord has this 12-inch aura, which will make your opponent have to spend an extra command point if they want to use a stratagem. This is a way of manipulating the amount of command points that are on the battlefield. Captains can discount command points. You've got freaking Azrael, Marnius Calgar that can just generate a free command point. Gretchen can generate a command point. These are units that are here that mess with the amount of command points on the battlefield. Battle shock mechanisms are fairly similar. So guys who can, point at a unit in the shooting phase and say, take a battle shock test. This is a very interesting mechanism that, while not necessarily the most reliable mechanism, can dramatically change the game. One of the strongest abilities of Dante with Sanguinary Guard, and my ability, is how his aura of battle shocks at -1 affects the battlefield. This is critical. It makes it so that when they charge in, oftentimes the enemy unit that I was worried about command point interrupting on me can't command point or interrupt, which allows me to start my combat in another combat, because now I don't have to worry about anyone interrupting on Dante. So these mechanisms can be very, very, very critical. It's super important that you understand that. However, one thing I want to mention to you is just because your unit can manipulate battle command points, or it can cause battle shocks, does not necessarily mean that's why it is in your army. For all of my orc players out there, we love Gretchen. Gretchen are one of the greatest units. Well, they're one of the, at least the most efficient units in the entire codex. And they do generate command points for you. But I would posit to you that I would never identify Gretchen. I would never identify their role as a command point manipulation. I would never say I'm taking Gretchen to get me more CP. I actually think that's a really, really bad reason to take Gretchen, because if you do, then what if you just don't generate CP because you don't roll 4-ups? What, is that unit useless? I think it's a really, really bad way. For me personally, if I were to take Gretchen, the way I would denote them, assign roles to them, is their job is primary control, which includes holding my primary and denying my opponent's primary, and 2, board control, because there's so many bodies and they're very useful for screening. So that's how I would assign roles to my Gretchen. Yes, they can generate CP, but in my brain, it's just a nice bonus that they can do. It's nothing that's not specifically why they're there. Likewise, for a lot of you Dark Angels people out there, you guys like to think of Azrael as an auto-include because he gives you free command points. But the question I posit to you is, do you actually need him to be generating you command points? Or is it just a nice bonus? Is it okay for him to be embarked in a transport one turn of the game so that you don't automatically generate that command point? I would argue that most of the time, you don't really need him generating you command points, because you're going to generate 10 command points automatically over the course of the game. I guarantee 2 to 3 turns, you're going to be discarding a card, which means you're going to, on average, end with 12 or 13 command points over the course of the game anyway. With Azrael, assuming he never dies, he could max get you up to 15 command points per game. So unless you specifically need him because your game plan requires you to have 2 command points when you go first, I would argue that Azrael should never have the role of command point generator. I would say that's just a nice, interesting bonus that he gives you. So just a little heads up on how I recommend you guys do this. Then the last role is going to be board control. Now this is a fairly nebulous. Board control is the most complicated role to assign, and I'm about to give you an example of a list that I built and how I assign roles, and you're going to see something interesting. I lean very heavily into board control mechanisms. So board control can be everything from move blocking. If you're a Space Marine player and you have scouts and they're, deploying in no man's land, well, that's doing a couple things. 1, it's denying your opponent's infiltrators. 2, it's denying your opponent's scout moves. 3, it gives you the opportunity to move block your opponent turn 1, because you could just advance them if you go first, stand 1.1 inches in front of your opponent's army, and then your opponents effectively can't move at all during their first turn. It's very, very powerful. So you have lots of move control types of abilities. Screening. Screening is this unit is specifically here, like I said with the Gretchen. They're there to spread out and make sure your opponent can't really deep strike or come in from strategic reserves, or they're going to block charges, things like this. So screening is an important form of board control. Pre-game denial, I already spoke about that with the scouts. Overwatch control. If I have a Land Raider Redeemer and he is standing in the middle of the battlefield, this dude has an Overwatch that is 2d6 plus 6 strike 6 AP2 flamers ignoring cover. I think he's like 6.5 inches long. So with a 12-inch range, 6.5 inches long, what is that? That's like almost 31-inch bubble of, if you move in your turn, I'm going to kill your infantry squad. So he actually has the ability to tell your opponent, hey, bro, you can't move anywhere here if you want your units to be safe. So that is a form of board control. Telling your opponent where they can safely stand is a very, very powerful ability. And then we also have a 6-inch deep strike denial. Or it's 6-inch deep strikes. This is a very, very powerful ability. Let's say like your opponent wants to stage up, but they know that your Death Shroud can always deep strike 6 inches away and do charges. Well, it's going to force them to move in a different way. So you're controlling how they are moving up the board. So examples here, Land Raider Redeemer, Dante with 6 Sanguinary Guard, and even Tank Bustas have the ability to tell your opponent where they can and cannot stand safely. So board control is a critical part of it. So let's go over to my list example. So this is an army list I wrote, which I like. It's not like, it might not be the final list that I go with Blood Angels for this season of 40k, but it's a pretty darn good one. So we've got Chief Librarian Mephiston. If you guys don't know, he's got like fights first. He's a lone op. People use him very, very wrong. They think he's a beast stick. I never take him to be a beast stick. I take him for 2 reasons. I take him 1, because he's got great board control, and I take him 2, because he's good at doing secondaries. The reason why he has good board control is that he is a lone op character. What this means is that you can't interact with him unless you get within 12 inches of him. And he's very tough, which requires a actually powerful shooting platform to actually deal with him at range, because he's got a 2-up arm save, he's T5, he's got a 5-up invulnerable save, he's got 6 wounds, and he's got a 4-up feel no pain. So if you're going to kill him in shooting, chances are really high you're going to have to dedicate something like a Vindicator or a Forge Fiend or something that's really dangerous to the rest of my army, and you're going to have to get within 12 inches of him, which puts the rest of my army within striking distance of your dangerous tool that I really want to eliminate. So I consider him a very potent form of board control. He's also, you can't really charge him with skirmishers because he's got that fights first ability. So Storm Boys can't really charge him. You can't charge him with like those 70 to 90 point units that you typically would expect to handle something like him. So he's great for board control. He's great for secondaries. Let's talk about Commander Dante. So this is one that would surprise a lot of people. I spoke about it on my live stream for Blood Angels a little more in depth, and you can go watch that if you want the full explanation. But I actually take this guy when he's leading his 6 Sanguinary Guard for board control and battle shock mechanisms. Interestingly enough, I don't take him specifically to kill things. I take him and I put him in a central ruin, and I always remind my opponents, it's like, hey, listen, man, at any point in time, I can move up to 19 inches from right here and still be at +1 to charge, and then you're going to have to deal with 39 damage to AP3 attacks. All hitting on 2s. I can make them lethal. I can make them +1 to win at strength 8, strength 10, respectively. So their killing potential, yes, they are a very killy unit, but it's much more powerful for me to keep them reserved to stop my opponent from putting their dangerous units where they want them to be. Because as long as they know Dante can move that far, they know they can't move safely. But the second I dedicate Dante to one of those fights, and yes, he'll kill things, and trust me, every single game I run him in, he kills something, unless it was just a disaster. But as the second I actually do send him to go kill something, he's no longer controlling the board for me anymore. So I only send him to strike after he's controlled the board and put it in the state where I want the board state to be. The other part of it is his battle shock mechanisms, and I kind of talked about that earlier. So then I've got the Sanguinor. Sanguinor, once again, he's not there to kill things. He's there for board control and primary control. I did a lot more in depth last night. You guys should go check that out if you want to learn more about the Sanguinor. But basically, I'll use him to screw up my opponent's pile-ins when they're charging into me, which is controlling the way my opponent has to move. Or I'll rapid ingress him in to hold a primary, and my opponent can't interact with him anymore because he's rapid ingresses, 12.1 inches away from all the shooting, and since he's alone up, now you can't shoot him. All right, then I've got the Captain with Jump Pack, and I actually have him with the Rage Fueled Warrior in this list. That doesn't mean this is going to stay, but for right now, I've got it. So he becomes a I'm going to kill everything unit. That's his job. His job is that he can come in and he can go blitzkrieg something and just obliterate it. He's also there with primary control because when he's doing this, he's specifically going to be denying my opponent their primaries when he does it. So those are the roles I give him. But notice the first role I give him is to kill everything. So it's more important for me that he goes and murders things than it is for me that he just controls primaries. Okay. The chaplain with the fight first enhancement is also going to be leading 6 Blade Guard veterans. So now this unit is going to have the kill elite / infantry role. Can they kill monsters and vehicles? Sure, but that's not really where I want them to be going into. It's something I can do, but I'd much rather have them go towards those elites or those infantry, because that's really what they do. And then the second would be primary control, not because they're going to be standing on my objectives, but they're going to be killing the things on my opponent's objectives to take it from them. Then we've got a unit of 5 jump pack assault intercessors. They're specifically for killing infantry and for, once again, taking objectives. Then I've got the 5-man infiltrator squad. They're there specifically for board control, using their 12-inch deep strike denial to stop my opponent from deep striking where they want to go. So if I'm playing against Chaos Demons, or if I'm playing against, what is it called? Death Guard, or I'm playing against people with Inceptors, or I'm playing against, Grey Knights, or anyone with tons of deep strikes. So they're there to help control that board. And they're there for primary control because they're a very good unit at standing on my circles. Then we've got the 6-man unit Sanguinary Guard with Dante. We spoke about the jump pack captain with the 3 Sanguinary Guard. I've got a squad of scouts. These guys are here for board control because they're going to stop, pre-game moves, and they're also many times turn 1. I'm just going to advance them up and stop my opponent from moving. But they're also there, and this is something that's unique to Blood Angels, they're there for anti-infantry. If I was taking scouts in another detachment or another army, I might say that they were there for secondaries. But in this army, they're specifically there because they're very, very good at killing infantry. Then I've got 2 ball predators. They're there for primary control, typically denying my opponent's primary and killing infantry. I've got 2 lancers. Their primary role is to kill monsters and vehicles, and their secondary role is to hold my objectives. And then lastly, we have 1 impulsor who's there to do secondary actions and primary, of course, after he distributes his payload, which is going to be the Blade Guard vets. So this is how I actually identify roles in my armies. Hopefully this is valuable to you, because now when I know what roles my units are here to serve, I know when and where to dedicate my units. I know that even if Dante could go kill something right now, I lose a huge advantage if I do it. So I might say send my captain with jump pack to go kill the thing and save Dante for the next turn so that he's still controlling the board in the meantime. Just as an example for you guys. So use this in your list building. It's going to make a world of freaking difference. And trust me when I say this, you'll be crumping more. If you like this content, like, share with your friends, subscribe. You can join the Discord, the members Discord, which is the majority of the Discord. We do have a free section, but it's a very minor part of the Discord. But we're there. I based in the free section. I'm there like answering rules questions and stuff. But where we do all of our tactical discussions is all on the member side. So we'd love to have you in there. You can sign up by using my coffee and the link down below, or you can become a YouTube member and you can just link your account to Discord. The bot will automatically add your role, and you will be discussing tactics and strategy with the best of us immediately. So guys, I appreciate you. I hope you have an amazing freaking day. Crump on. Bye-bye.